Hello, Aries. If you're hearing this right now, then maybe, just maybe, your soul is finally ready for something bigger, because this isn't just another message, and September 25th won't be just another date on the calendar. This is the moment that reveals a truth no one ever dared to tell you, a truth that might make you look back at your entire life and realize you've never truly started living, not because you weren't good enough, but because no one ever told you you were chosen. Today, I'm going to share a story with you, not someone else's story, but yours, the journey you wrote for yourself long before you ever arrived here, and it all begins with something most people miss because it doesn't come with lightning or noise, but with a silence that runs deep. So take a breath and walk with me into the very first chapter, the silence before the storm when the soul quietly begins to wake. Everything truly great begins in silence, not the kind of silence that's empty, but the kind that carries a deep breath, a quiet heartbeat, slow, steady, and unstoppable. In a noisy world where people are always rushing, chasing time, chasing deadlines, chasing approval, you, Aries, are being invited into something else. A different space, a sacred one, where the voice doesn't speak from your lips, it speaks from within, from the deepest part of your heart. On September 25th, you won't hear thunder, you won't see a door swing open in front of you. But if you sit still just for a moment, you will feel it. Something old, something real, something buried deep is beginning to move. Maybe you'll notice yourself pausing unexpectedly, as if someone unseen pressed pause on your life. Things that once flowed now slow. A plan stalls, an appointment gets canceled. A door you thought was open suddenly slams shut. Small things, but they make you stop and whisper to yourself, is this a sign? Yes, it is, not from the outside world, but from within you, a forgotten instinct, a flicker of light that's been buried, a soul that hasn't been allowed to speak for far too long. Let me ask you this, Aries. Have you ever been in a crowded room, everyone smiling, laughing, but you felt completely out of place? Have you looked at your life, your job, your relationships, your little successes, and thought, why does it still feel like something's missing? Have you ever felt like everything around you looks fine, but something inside you is breaking quietly? If you have, you are not alone, because that moment, that quiet breaking, is the first signal of a soul awakening. There's a teaching in Buddhism, it says, insight arises from stillness, meaning the deepest revelations, the real awakenings don't come when you're running, they come when you finally stop. And right now, Aries, this is that moment. You're the sign of action, of fire, of bold beginnings, but fire isn't born from explosions. It's born from a quiet spark in the dark. On September 25th, you may feel that spark, not blinding, not loud, but soft, like moonlight slowly rising in a silent night. You may begin to feel distant from old routines. Conversations you once enjoyed might now feel hollow. Relationships that once gave you joy now leave you tired. And those dreams that keep repeating with the same images, the same emotions, they're no longer just dreams, they're messages. You are not lost. You're being called home, and this silence isn't something to fear. It is sacred. It is the place where your soul has been waiting for you to return, to sit down and hear it whisper, it's time. And when you listen deeply enough, you'll begin to understand. Silence isn't empty. It is full. It is the space where destiny begins to speak. So let me ask you, could the recent slowdowns be a message? Could that quiet pull in your heart be a calling? Could you step into that silence the way a pilgrim walks into a sacred forest with no map, but with absolute trust? I believe you can. And if you've ever had a moment like that, where everything stopped, and something inside you just broke open, share that story in the comments. Not for attention, but as a gift, because maybe your story will be the light someone else has been waiting for. Silence is where destiny begins to take root, and on September 25th, the seed begins to grow. But what's waiting for you on the other side of that silence? What truth is hiding behind all the delays, the tension, the dreams that don't make sense yet? There is something no one has told you. A hidden agreement, a sacred truth that's been buried but now is starting to rise. And that is what I'm about to tell you next. There are some truths in life that no one has ever said out loud, and yet you've always felt them, like a quiet hum beneath everything you've lived, a deeper meaning, a secret path just beneath the surface. Not everyone stops to ask, why was I born? Why now in these circumstances, with these wounds and these dreams? But if you're still here listening, I believe you've asked that question. And I believe this too. You didn't come here by accident. You're not some random spark in the chaos of the cosmos, not a grain of sand drifting through the stars. You are a soul who chose to be here, for a reason, before you ever became a human named Aries, before you learned to speak, to walk, to endure, to smile. You signed a contract, not written on paper, no signatures, no witnesses, just you and the universe. A sacred, silent agreement, etched into the architecture of your soul, not to bind you, but to remind you, you were not born to simply exist. You were born to awaken. But here's the thing, that contract doesn't send you daily reminders. It doesn't arrive as a text from your guardian angel. It doesn't scream. It hides in the tension you carry inside, in the exhaustion you feel when success leaves you empty, in the ache of touching a long-desired dream, only to find a hollow silence inside. And then one day, like September 25th, it stirs. No announcement, no warning, it just begins to activate. You start to notice something feels off. A job you used to be proud of now feels heavy. A relationship that once felt safe and now feels suffocating. A dream that once burned bright starts to blur, not because you failed, but because you're being awakened. That contract, it doesn't force you. It just shakes the ground, just enough to keep you from falling back asleep in your old shell. And in that shake, you are given a choice. Keep walking the familiar path because it's what you know, or turn inward and face the sacred map you hid inside your own heart before you were ever born. I know you've been doing life well. Maybe you're responsible, reliable, doing what's expected of you. But there may be a part of you, quiet, honest, alive, that's never truly been lived. And that part doesn't need you to succeed. It just needs you to pause. Look inward, because if you don't remember why you came here, you'll keep running a race that was never yours. Living by someone else's expectations, chasing dreams designed by society, and one day, you'll wake up tired, confused, wondering why you still feel so empty, even when you seem to have everything. That's when the contract speaks up. You feel the pressure, you want to pause, you feel your heart crying while your face still smiles. Don't ignore that. It's not here to ruin you, it's here to rescue you. From the life that isn't really yours. I've been there. I know what it feels like to wake up one day and realize you've drifted far from where your soul wanted to go, and I also know that returning doesn't always require a big plan. Sometimes, it just takes a gentle reminder. So if even a small part of you has ever felt like you were born for something more, write it down in the comments. Write it for yourself. Write it so your inner voice can hear itself again, and write it so someone else might know. They're not alone on this journey of awakening. We each carry a sacred promise, and sometimes just remembering that promise is enough to begin again, more real, more free, more whole. You don't have to start over. You just have to start again with yourself. And when that soul contract begins to awaken, it doesn't bring blinding light or gates of heaven. No, what it brings first is something most people fear to face, not glory but collapse, the collapse of the old self, the breaking of what no longer belongs to you, the disintegration of the persona you built just to survive. And only when those layers fall can the real light begin to find its way back in. The biggest shift in your life rarely comes wrapped in glitter. It comes in the breaking, in the kind of exhaustion you can't even name, in that strange feeling like you're living someone else's life, inside your own skin. And then one day you wake up and you just can't keep going, not because you're weak, but because the part of you that's been pretending to fit in has finally run out of strength. Aries, you are strong, you know how to rise, you know how to fight, you know how to push forward. But what no one ever told you is this: not every battle is meant to be fought. Not every person is meant to stay. Maybe you're in a very strange season of your life, one where what used to feel safe now feels suffocating. A job you once fought to keep now feels heavy each morning. A role you once took pride in now feels like a thick, wet coat you can't breathe under. You're not wrong. You're not selfish. You're just beginning to see. The person you became no longer fits the soul you carry. There's a simple Buddhist teaching I always remember. Everything is impermanent. Even the self is not fixed. And sometimes, to move forward, you don't need to become a better version of yourself. You just need to release the outdated one. This collapse is not the end. It's a narrow hallway leading you back to the light. And I know maybe right now you're walking through that hallway. Your steps are shaky. The light ahead's still blurry, but but you're walking, and that alone is enough to shift the entire world. There's a dangerous myth out there that falling means failing, that breaking means weakness, but the truth is only what no longer serves you can break. What is real, what is true, will never require you to shrink or suffer just to keep it. So ask yourself this: what part of you hasn't felt alive in a long time? A relationship, a lifestyle, a belief you once clung to that now only holds you back. If something comes to mind, don't rush to push it away. Sometimes we don't need the perfect answer, we just need the courage to ask the right question. You don't have to leap, just unclench, one finger at a time, from the thing that no longer belongs to you. Just admit, I'm tired. And even that is an act of love for yourself. I've lived through seasons like that too, when everything around me still looked okay, but I couldn't recognize the person in the mirror anymore. When the praise from others couldn't drown out the quiet weeping inside. And it was only when I allowed myself to break that I finally began to live. If right now you feel the old parts of you crumbling, please know this: you are not broken. You are in rhythm with your soul. Sometimes, to be led home, you have to let your old house fall. Because only when the walls collapse can you finally see the sky that's always been there. So try this for yourself. Write it down. What part of your old self asking to be released? Write it not to explain, not to defend, but to set yourself free. Who knows, your words today might just open the door for someone else who's also searching for light. And after all the breaking, when the final layer falls, when you look back and realize you let go not out of defeat but out of love, you'll begin to feel the one thing you've been searching for all along. Not a miracle, not a loud calling, but a path quietly beginning to reveal itself. A path you thought never existed, but it's always been there, waiting for you to arrive as the truest version of yourself. Not every path you're meant to take is laid out in front of you. Sometimes it's been right beside you all along. You just never paused long enough to notice. We grow up in a world that teaches us to strive, to push forward, to chase success as fast as we can. But very few people ever tell you that sometimes to find what you're really looking for, you have to turn back, not backward, but inward, back into yourself. Aries, you've lived long enough to know some dreams never came true. Some things you thought were forever left without warning, and some paths you once believed in now feel like a maze with no end. But if you sit down, open your heart, and look deeply into what you've been through, you'll see something powerful. Every crack, every moment you shattered was not meant to break you. It was to let the light in. I've wandered through my own life too, searching for answers in unfamiliar lands, seeking meaning in achievements, searching for God in prayers, and finding glimpses of peace in silence. But in the end, what was sacred was never far away. It had always lived in the one place. I was too afraid to look within myself. Maybe you're still walking through the questions. Maybe things still feel blurry. If so, try this. Look back at the moments you once labeled as mistakes, the choices you regret, the unexpected turns that left you lost. You might begin to see an invisible hand was always clearing the way, not to make it easier, but to lead you back to yourself. Sometimes God doesn't answer with miracles. He answers with a loss, a goodbye, a sudden stillness that forces you to stop and change. Just like in astrology, nothing moves by accident. Every retrograde is a wake-up call, every waning moon, a lesson in letting go, and every full moon, a moment of revelation where what's been hiding finally steps into the light. The true path, it doesn't come as a map. It doesn't give step-by-step directions. It arrives through intuition, through a strange harmony between things that once felt scattered. Sometimes it shows up as an unexpected email, a dream that shakes you awake, a random encounter that feels oddly familiar, a song playing right when you were about to give up, or simply a quiet morning where you wake up and just feel it's time. And the most beautiful part is, everything you've ever lived through had a reason. The unfinished love stories, they weren't meant to break you forever. They came to teach you what real love is. The failed projects, they weren't there to kill your dreams. They were redirecting you toward your soul's true purpose. The empty moments, they didn't come to drown you. They came to make space for the sacred to step in. I believe every soul brings a promise when it enters this world. Some forget it early. Some search a lifetime to remember. And you, Aries, you're standing in the moment where everything is about to become clear. Maybe today you still can't see the full picture, but the pieces are starting to move on their own. And when they finally click into place, you'll understand you were never lost. You were simply on your way home, and if there's a moment in your life you once thought was a wrong turn but now see as the very moment that saved you, share it with me, not to prove anything, but to remind yourself and someone else listening right now that God doesn't write stories in predictable sentences. He writes in quiet, deliberate signs. Only the soul can recognize. Aries, this is no longer about whether you have a destiny. The real question is, will you recognize it when it stops hiding? Because even when destiny becomes clear, even when the light appears, and the path begins to reveal itself, there's always a deeper question beneath it all. Will you step into it? Will you choose to live fully as who you really are, even if that means letting go of everything familiar? Will you say yes when your soul whispers for you to move forward, even if you can't yet see where it leads? There's nothing that makes us hesitate more than a door that's already open. You see it. You feel the energy behind it. You know if you walk through, everything will change. And yet, you stand still. Not because you don't want to move, but because you're afraid. Aries, this is one of the greatest paradoxes of the soul. The closer you get to your true light, the louder your inner fears start to scream. It's not that destiny isn't ready for you. It's that you're not sure if you're ready to receive it. I've met so many people at this exact moment where the old no longer fits and the new has begun to whisper. But they stand at the edge and turn away. They say, I need more time. I'm not sure yet. I'm waiting for a clearer sign. But what they don't know is, destiny doesn't wait. It only invites. And if you don't say yes, that invitation moves on to a soul brave enough to step forward. We often confuse certainty with faith. We want to see the whole path before we take the first step, but that's not how destiny works. It only lights up, one piece at a time, and only when you choose to keep walking. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you know you're trembling, you're doubting, you're feeling raw and exposed, and still you take the step. How many times in your life have you seen a door open, an opportunity, an invitation, a moment when your heart clearly said yes, and yet you turned away? You chose safety, you chose the familiar, you chose what was old just because no one could promise you it's going to be okay. I want you to be honest with yourself. No blame, no shame, just write it down. A moment when you chose to retreat instead of move forward. Write it down so you can forgive yourself. Then gently place your hand on your chest, close your eyes, and ask, this time, what will you choose? Destiny doesn't come to hurt you. It comes to rescue you from a life that was never truly yours. It doesn't draw a map. It simply brings you to the doorway. The rest is up to you. And if you're standing there now, right at the threshold, I want you to know you're not alone. I'm here. Thousands of others are listening, and God is still watching. He doesn't rush you. He doesn't threaten you. He simply waits, and he whispers, you can, if only you believe. Faith isn't certainty. Faith is the quiet strength when everything still feels uncertain. And if your heartbeat has slowed just a little by now, if something inside you is gently nodding yes, if you feel like you're being called, then don't let hesitation steal this one sacred moment. Because Aries, your soul has waited a long, long time, and now it doesn't want to wait any longer. The choice isn't out there, it's in your hands. And if you're ready, if every cell in your body is whispering, it's time, then let this moment be your yes. A yes unspoken but powerful enough to echo from soul to universe. And as the door begins to open wide, as you step out of the space of doubt, a new light will touch you, not blinding, but just enough to make you close your eyes and smile through the tears, because that's the moment you'll know you've come home. And if all you hear right now is an invitation, take it, because what's ahead of you isn't just another turn, it's your rebirth. September 25th is coming, not as a date on a calendar, but as a promise your soul once wrote long before you got here. And now, you're being asked to remember and finally live it. Some days look just like any other. The sky stays blue, the calendar turns, and life ticks on like a mechanical clock. But somewhere beneath that quiet surface, something greater is unfolding, a blueprint long prepared, a soul appointment you made long before you knew this life was yours. September 25th is not just another beautiful day. It's the day the universe chooses you, not to crown you, but to awaken you, not to make you do anything, but to remind you of who you've always been. Maybe you've doubted yourself before. Maybe you wore a mask because it felt safer that way. Maybe you dimmed your uniqueness just to survive. Maybe you hid your light, afraid of how others might envy it. but the universe hasn't forgotten. And today it knocks gently on the door of your heart and whispers, "It's time to come home." Rebirth isn't about becoming someone new. Rebirth is about returning to who you truly are. The wild, pure, radiant version of you, untouched by the world's expectations. Maybe you've asked yourself, why am I living this life? Why did I go through all that pain? Why do I feel so different, so out of place? The answer is here, not because you took the wrong path, but because your true path was never meant to follow someone else's trail. You weren't born to follow, you were born to lead. To light the first flame in places no one dared to walk. And that's why every heartbreak, every moment that seemed meaningless, was a sacred piece, building the person the universe needs right now. Not everyone hears the call of their soul. Not everyone is brave enough to answer. But if you're still listening, I believe you already know that call is meant for you. You might still be in the fog, but light doesn't wait for the fog to clear. It shows up to help you see. On September 25th, your soul will step out of the shadows. No more hiding, no more settling, no more pretending to be someone else. That will be the day you choose to live the way you were always meant to, radiant, bold, without waiting for anyone's permission. You'll choose yourself, not to reject others, but to finally say yes to who you are, after all these years of delay. I don't know where you'll be that day, maybe walking a familiar road, maybe sipping morning coffee like any other day, but I believe deep in your heart, there will be a quiet moment, and in that stillness, you'll hear something that only your soul can recognize. This is it. In that moment, you don't need to do anything grand, just have the courage to be real. Just say yes to the path you chose long before this life began, and then everything will shift, not the world outside, but the way you show up inside it. And if you're afraid, remember, God doesn't love the perfect. He loves the brave, the ones who tremble but still knock on destiny's door. And I believe you are one of them. Thank you, Aries, for listening all the way to the end with an open heart and a ready soul. I pray the light of truth forever guides your steps, and this September 25th, you won't just change your life, you'll awaken a part of the soul this world has been waiting for. May you have enough love to forgive your past, enough courage to walk into your future, and enough stillness to hear the sacred calling within.